is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This is episode number 505. Take a deep breath, Marshall. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line, all the way from Denver, Colorado, with his stupid dog stuck in the bathroom, it's Scott-Vargas.
Yes, I am. Basically, our dog Julie, if the doors aren't completely shut, she can push her way in. When the door swings inward, then it kind of goes shut again, and then you can't push it from that side. And that's how you get dogs stuck in bathrooms for no real reason.
I'm not going to lie. I love that dog. Every story I hear from the dog is just like getting itself into some ridiculous scenario. Maybe not exercising the utmost intelligence in doing so, but good entertainment value for.
She's now known as the bandwagon dog because me and Matt Nass do our bandwagon videos, and she's always in them. And so people are like, wait, is that the dog from the bandwagon? It's like, well, no, that's our dog. But
yeah, does she like to stay on the bandwagon, or does she?
No, she leaves almost immediately every time.
She jumps off it sometimes. All right, let's get into the show here. First things first, got to talk about our sponsor, channelfireball.com. Couple of cool things coming up. First thing, GP Vegas. Not that far away now. We're recording this on a Tuesday, and it's not this coming weekend, but it's the next weekend after that. And I'm going to be heading down a bit early to get ready for coverage stuff and take a little time. And Luis, I know you're going to be there forever. It is going to be an absolute mind-racking zoo, but in the best possible way. And we certainly encourage you to check it out. And on top of it, there's a billion things happening in Vegas. It is really much closer to like a Magic convention than just a Magic tournament. And you've got kind of a neat thing lined up there that our listeners might be interested in. Yeah,
I am going to be doing vintage cubes. So basically, this is an experiment. So how well it does will determine whether it comes back or not. But we're going to have myself, Gabby Spartz, and Andrea Mangucci all doing live vintage cube drafts. Me and Gabby will be using her vintage cube, and Andrea is going to use his, which he's bringing. And we're going to do it in like this feature match area. It's going to be 7 best of 1 matches. So basically, I'll be in a draft with 7 other people, and they'll all play against me as well as each other. So,
okay.
We get to do a live vintage cube draft, and, vintage cube is my favorite way to play Magic. We get to battle. You win prize tickets for each match you win, and then everyone who plays gets a foil lightning bolt promo and a foil playmat that you can only get from these events because we're running I think we're running 10 of the drafts total between the 3 of us, and that's the only place to get these playmats, which I think look pretty cool. They're like a foiled out playmat.
So if I'm a fan of like Gabby's stream, for example, and I always wanted to have a chance to play against her, but I never have, I could join this and I will for sure get a chance to play against her too.
Everyone who joins will get to play against the whoever's cube it is. Well, me, Gabby, or Andrea.
Very cool.
It's a premium event. The entry fee is $200, so it's not nothing. But it's also this is why we're trying it in Vegas, and of course, creating and hauling a vintage cube out there, plus getting Andrea to come out, me to come out, Gabby to come out, and do all this does take some resources. We actually have to have a special judge for each draft because it does not keep the cards. Like we're going to make sure none of the cards vanish here. So. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope people like it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I really would, if it's something you're interested in, definitely check it out. Because if these end up doing well, then I think we might try to bring them back because we wanted to put it at a point where we could offer them because it's again takes a lot of doing, but we also want people to have fun and enjoy it, and it's going to be a pretty casual, relaxed event itself. It's not like the matches themselves aren't high stakes. So I'm really kind of excited to see how these all go. And honestly, Vegas is just the best tournament of the year. We said this last week. We're going to say it next week. Well, I guess next week is Vegas, but
we will be there. Yeah.
Yeah. There's just a million things to do. If this isn't your cup of tea, you can play in MCQs, or on the complete opposite side of the competitive spectrum, you can play Commander. We've got the command zone. You can just go in there and play. There's just a ton of different things you can do. You can buy, sell cards. There's artists. Vegas is, if there is a Magic convention, Vegas is that. Vegas is the kind of Gen Con of Magic. And, Gen Con's tagline is the best 4 days in gaming, which I truly believe it is. This is the, best 5 days of Magic. So 4 days of Magic. So I'm really looking forward to it. And, we're both going to be there doing coverage too. So
Indeed. I will be around. I'll put a link in the show notes for the side event schedule where you can find entry to those cube drafts that we mentioned as well, if you're interested. Show is also, of course, brought to you by the Patreon. That's patreon.com/limited resources. And this is a place to go if you want to support the show directly. I talked about it at length last week, so I'll keep it short this time. Link in the show notes if you're interested in that.
I've got
so this week,
a crisp dollar bill here, if that'll get me into the Patreon, because currently I don't have access to it.
So you actually can get into the Patreon for as little as $1.
Well, there we go.
Not in cash.
Oh, I was just going to palm you a buck.
I'm sorry. Yeah, well, you can give that to me in Vegas and we can talk terms. But so on the show this week, we've got two things. We've got, first, we want to talk M20 Sealed Deck. Look, there's going to be some local tournaments and stuff like that coming up for sure that are going to be M20. So we wanted to hit that up. And then when we're done with that, we figured we'd get to some of the Q&A questions that I asked for the episode that Luis ended up having to miss in Barcelona. We covered a few of them with our special guests on that show. That was the one with Riley, Maria, and Tim. But there was a lot of questions, and I figured we'd try to get through a few more of those, especially because many of them were, of course, aimed at Luis or Luis and I specifically, and we weren't able to answer those there. So we'll be doing some number of those after. But first things first, let's crack a pack. Although, do I actually have a crack? Do you have a pack?
Not within reaching distance, no.
Neither do I. All right, I got an idea. Oh, doing it the good old-fashioned way here, Luis.
Ooh. Is that a pack generator or arena?
We're going to fire up good old arena.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I'm just going to burn one for the team here.
Hey, it's one of the few times that the Crack-A-Pack actually gets drafted.
Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't. Yeah, that is true, but unfortunately, it won't. I won't have the card to give away. So,
well, if you open something good, I feel like it's your moral prerogative to supply that to a listener. However, you have to get it.
I do. I think you're right. All right. Confirm purchase. We're in. Okay, so here is our opener. This is weird seeing them all at once. I usually kind of slow roll us. But anyway, first card is Marauder's Axe.
Yeah, no? It's a playable in some decks, but definitely not a first pick.
Heartpiercer Bow. Man, if you play on Arena, Heartpiercer Bow is a huge part of the metagame.
I think that Heartpiercer Bow is like, I guess you can't really evaluate it without talking about Vial of Dragonfire and Renowned Weaponsmith, but they get the award for most improved, Yeah,
they do.
They went all from D's in Dragons of Tarkir to probably a B minus, in
as
this
a package. Set. Yeah. It is interesting too, because Heartpiercer Bow is relatively ignored by the bots. So, the kind of the turning point for me was I was watching Ryan's stream over at Going Optimal, and he had 4 Heartpiercer Bows in a green-black deck. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I saw what happened, and it's just he ended up drawing 2 of them, and it brick-walled, some percentage of his opponent's creatures. And if he ever hit the third one, it was kind of lights out. Now, having the Weaponsmith to just dig them up turn after turn is a lot better. But yeah, Heartpiercer Bow, especially when you can get them on the wheel, kind of for free, is quite strong. And in fact, has warped the metagame, at least in my opinion, enough that you have to consider your 1 toughness creatures a little more carefully. That comes up for the next card, which is Sedge Scorpion, which loses a bit of value. I mean, normally it just sits there and it's just I'm going to trade for something. It's just a matter of what. And now so many people just go equip Heartpiercer Bow, attack you, and your Scorpion dies that you have to give it at least a little bit of a downgrade on Arena. I don't know if this is true in paper, but
it's certainly on Arena that 1 toughness creatures, especially ones like Cloudkin Seer kind of gets in there and eventually forces your opponent to do something. The main purpose of Sedge Scorpion is to sit there and dissuade attackers, which means your opponent just has all the time in the world to find their bow and just throw them bows.
Indeed. But anyway, none of these are really where we want to be. Plummet, not going to first pick it. We'll talk about it a little bit for Sealed. Pack Mastiff, serviceable 2-drop, the 1 in a red 2/2 that you can pump up, but not where we want to be as well. Fire Elemental, no. Fathom Fleet Cutthroat. I'm quite a fan of this card. I actually like it quite a bit. It works well with Heartpiercer Bow and a bunch of other things. But again, not really where I want to be on the first pick tip here. Bone Splinters? All right. Yeah. That's our leader.
I mean, I would find it really hard to believe that at the end of the pack, this is what we're going to first pick, but Bone Splinters is a fine card.
Agreed. Frilled Sea Serpent, no. Soul Mender, no. Wow, those are our commons. Whew.
Not
Bone
good.
Splinters is the best common. All right, well, let's get to the uncommons. First one is Captivating Gyre. That's the 4/blue sorcery. Return up to 3 target creatures to their owner's hands. We didn't like this much in the set review, and I still don't like it that much.
No, I'm not. It's a little better than we had kind of graded it, but I don't think it's great.
Right.
It's not a card I'd want to first pick, and I think I'd probably first pick Bone Splinters over it.
Yeah, this is getting ugly. All right. Master Splicer. Now, it's not in the color that we necessarily want to be, but that's a good card.
Yeah, I mean, white isn't the best color. In fact, it's the worst, but Master Splicer is such a good card. I'm just first picking Master Splicer here for sure.
Yeah, it's 5 power and 5 toughness over 2 bodies for 4 mana. Really, really good. Next, well, it's another white card. It is Herald of the Sun. 4 white for a 4/4 flying angel. And she has the ability 3 and a white, put a +1/+1 counter on another target creature with flying.
A good card, but not as good as Master Splicer. Master Splicer is just too efficient.
So I heard you like white cards. Cavalier of Dawn is rare.
All right. I mean, white, and 2. So 5 mana. So 5/6. Is that right?
4/6. Yeah.
4/6, and then when it enters the battlefield, destroy target permanent and give them a 3/3. Or
non-land permanent, and then that
right,
they get
non-land.
a 3/3.
And then when it dies, you get to return an artifact or enchantment from the graveyard to your hand.
It also has vigilance. Look, they didn't go nuts on this particular Cavalier, but it's still very strong.
Oh, it's very good. I mean, it handles their biggest threat, gives you a 4/6 vigilance. Then, you're not always going to be able to use the dies trigger, but it's still, I think, an overall good enough card that I would just first pick it.
Yeah, I'm going to first pick it here as well. Now, let's get into sealed here, where you don't get to choose what you first pick. You just got to open up your packs and hope you get a lot of stuff. So we've got kind of a bunch of stuff to cover here. The broad strokes, though, that I want to start off with, and I think the most important thing to consider here is that, at least in my experience in the sealed format, things can absolutely come to a grinding halt. And if you find yourself in a matchup where things can come to a grinding halt, and I think that that'll happen pretty often, you need to have contingency plans or at least some way to break those stalls where you can get ahead on cards or get ahead on board or power through with some sort of evasion or go over the top of your opponent or whatever. But when I approach M20 Sealed, I think of planning for the long game. And that's a pretty traditional stride for Sealed to take, right? It's pretty common that the games go longer, but in M20, I'm really aware of it. Like, I'm very much thinking that I want to configure my deck in a manner that it is advantaged in those type of games. And then if shown otherwise, if shown that my opponent actually does have a pretty good curve out style deck or a synergistic deck that's a little faster than I would anticipate, then I'll change my deck back to something more reactive or having a little more interaction. But as it stands, man, I'm really just trying to maximize on all value levels, whether it's raw power on the battlefield or recursion or straight up card advantage. And this is kind of the broad strokes that are going to guide at least the way that I am approaching this format. Good.
Sorry, I was coughing. I was going to spare the listeners that. Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Your ranted take on Sealed really just made me throw up a little in my mouth. But
you got choked up at my
you're completely right. Basically, aggressive decks aren't as much of a thing. Look, this is going to sound like a lot of Seals, though we have some M20 specific stuff coming up. But you're going to want to figure out what's my plan to go over the top. What's my plan to get consistent advantage throughout the middle to late part of the game. It doesn't have to be like one huge thing. It doesn't have to be, you don't necessarily have to be a bomb, but, a way to get card advantage. If you have like 2 Cloud Concealers and a Tomebound Lich and a Soul Salvage plus a couple removal spells, that can beat a lot of high rarity cards for sure.
Totally. Absolutely.
If it's, a couple Leafkin Druids and a bunch of Silverbacks, that can also help too. So it just has to be something so that you're not just like playing a Nessian Courser or Centaur Courser and then playing like a random 4-drop and then, kind of sitting there. Like you got to actually do something that is relevant in the middle to late of the game when your opponent has good cards as well.
Right. And it's interesting because a few things come to mind when you start to conceptualize how these decks actually look. Right. And some of the things are, well, the card advantage, right? So card advantage in many ways is king in formats like this, where 2-for-1s are really good and repeatable card advantage is even better. So you mentioned Soul Salvage. I mean, that can be your late game plan. That's really good. Another example is Spectral Sealer. That's the 1/1 flyer for 1. You can pay 3 and a blue to draw a card. Look, you don't even have to run that thing out on turn 1 if you don't want. You can just keep it in your hand until you're guaranteed to get at least one card out of it and do kind of the, I have 5 mana, end step, play it, draw a card, untap, draw another card. That can be enough to propel you. And if it's left unchecked, you can absolutely dominate the game with it. Cards like Blood for Bones do similar. And I tend to bump up even kind of medium cards like Brightwood Tracker, because Brightwood Tracker kind of fits right into this game plan where it gets you to that late game. And then it really is a legitimate source of card advantage. If you find yourself in a stall out and it's turn 12 or whatever, one person has a Brightwood Tracker, they are at a huge advantage. Like, it needs to get killed, and it's very difficult to kill. It doesn't die to much of the removal. The smaller removal pacifism doesn't deal with it properly. Only Outrage kills it out of, actually, I shouldn't say that. What's it called? Does too, the 5-drop, but still, Tracker. Yeah, Reduced Ashes does as well. But still, this is a must kill. And this is not, this is a common. This is just a random kind of filler style common that ends up becoming a must kill. That's a great little, you talked about most improved player, right? That's Brightwood Tracker kind of jumping up and down saying, me, put me in, coach. Because that really is the type of card that can become an all-star out of off the bench, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's the exact kind of card that kind of embodies what we're talking about, where, look, we're not saying that you should, get your Colossus hammers out and that's your plan. But you should have good mana sinks. You should have ways to kind of pull ahead when it's turn 6 or 7 and both players are at like 15 and no one has good attacks.
Yep. Another one that you can do is Pattern Matcher. If you have at least 2 X's of creatures in your deck, you can throw a Pattern Matcher in there. One note, by the way, on Renowned Weaponsmith, it can also be quite good, but I think it's a lot worse than it normally would be mainly because of the impact that the cards that you actually get have. Like, let's say you have Renowned Weaponsmith and then 1 each of the artifacts. That's worth it, right? You're going to do that because you're getting card advantage out of it and getting actual spells. But let's not get carried away here, right? The vial thing or whatever is minimal impact.
There's not as many 2 toughness creatures you care about for Vial. There's not as many 1 toughness creatures for the bow. And you're not likely to get 2 or 3 bows, which you can in draft.
Exactly.
I do really like, as a side note, the Renowned Weaponsmith Meteor Golem combo. Like, Meteor Golem's just,
just powering it out?
Yeah, it's just an absurdly powerful card. So using a Weaponsmith to play a Meteor Golem on turn 5 is very good.
Yeah, that is really, really strong. And look, that's another one that we should put on this list. More 2-for-1s. Meteor Golem, great. And then now you can start to see this web form, right? Where you're like, okay, I play a Meteor Golem, I blow up your best thing, they kill it, I soul salvage it back, I replay the Meteor Golem. Now you're actually getting somewhere. Now you're breaking a stall, right? Again, start combining some of these cards. Spectral Sealer, right? You use it, you draw a card. At some point, your opponent's like, fine, I'll kill it. Then you buy it back with Soul Salvage, right? Or you Blood for Bones it back. And now you've got this engine again that says, you have to kill this, or within like a 2-turn sequence, I'm going to just pull so far ahead on cards, you're going to lose. These are the type of things that you should be looking for to break these stalls. And, that means that you want to devalue some things, right? One of them being combat tricks, right? Short-term gains tend to not be where you want to be in these type of situations because they don't deal with the most common situation that you find, which is, again, a board stall of some point. Luis, talk about synergies too. This is huge, right? Because we're used to draft, and M20, especially for a core set, actually has some pretty decent synergistic decks available.
One of the biggest differences, and one of the reasons we do this episode, is you need to kind of recalibrate how you feel about or think about certain cards. Because when you're in draft and you see like a Lavacan brawler, I've been very much in the mode of Modern Horizons, so I'm like I've backslid on card names.
Oh, I totally feel you, man. Yeah.
The 4-mana 2/4 when it attacks gets +1/+0 for each.
No, that was the name. You nailed it.
Oh, Lavakin Brawler. Okay,
yeah.
cool. I got there. That's a card I love in draft, and I have it pretty high up. It's like one of the better red commons.
Mm-hmm.
In Sealed, it just drops so much, as do other elemental synergy cards, because you're more likely to end up with like 4 elementals than 8. And it means that when you look at a card, you need to be aware that like this isn't draft. You're not going to end up with like a neat blue-white flyers deck or sacrifice deck or elemental deck nearly as often. Like, look, you can look at the cards you have there and make that decision, right? Mm-hmm. You're able to say like, well, yes, you might have said that, but I do have 2 Risen Reefs and 6 other elementals, so that's great. And I'm like, okay, that's awesome. But for the most part, those cards go down in value, and you need to not, because one of the things that most people do when they build sealed decks is they just like put all the good cards in for each color in a pile, right? Mm-hmm. Don't automatically think these cards that are Bs in draft are Bs in sealed. Some of them are going to be Cs.
Yeah, totally. The way I envision these things, like in using the elementals as the example here, is instead of like those insane curve outs where they go like 2-drop, 3-drop, 4-drop elementals or whatever, or let's say they play a Risen Reef on 3 and then they end up triggering it 4 times over the course of the next 6-7 turns or whatever if you don't kill it. That is much less likely. The power tends to kind of pool up in these little interactions, these sort of 1-2 punches or specific interactions. Like, for example, they may play a Risen Reef, and in draft, you're like, I'm screwed, right? Like, I am done to Risen. I must kill it. In Sealed, they might trigger it twice, right? They might get a couple of triggers off it. Now
they're not just going to go off,
right? They're not necessarily now. Don't tweet me if they do happen to go nuts on you, but
if they Risen Reef and go off and Sealed, definitely tweet Marshall. Yeah, you don't have to tag me, but definitely tweet Marshall.
But yeah, the key here though is that you anticipate it not being the same as it is in draft. You look at it and you say, okay, these are issues, but it's not the same thing. You're not going to be facing down these streamlined decks nearly as often. They do pop up occasionally, but it's quite rare to see that. So again, keep that stuff in mind. Aggressive strategies tend to go down in value. Cards like Raise the Alarm or small ground creatures that can't break through
honestly,
a stall.
We're not talking about a set that has a lot of great aggressive decks to begin with. So
that's true.
The odds that you should have an aggressive sealed deck here are close to none. Like,
yeah, that's a good point.
Basically, aggressive decks are kind of like synergy decks in that they need to draw the right cards at the right time and combine to be more than the sum of their parts. And, like as they say, complexity is the enemy of execution. So
they do say that. Yeah. And I think key here as well is that if we're not playing the early stuff, that also means that we have a little bit more time to play the late stuff. So keep in mind some of the more expensive bombs that you see in draft and maybe go, I'm going to take this Cloud Conceer. It's efficient. It's good. I know it's great. And I'm not going to take this 7-drop or whatever. Here, I mean, you don't have to worry about, deciphering between the two, but you should be more willing to play some of the more expensive bombs because they can absolutely take over. And we'll talk about those in a little bit. And as well as that, you should also be much more willing to branch out as far as your colors go within reason. Green is still the best at this. They get Gift of Paradise and the ability to play ramp with the Leafkin Druid and stuff. But still, other colors can do it too. Evolving Wilds is in the set. You can get away with a little splashy splash.
One of the first things I look at, after looking at the rares, is looking at what lands you have. Because if you have like 2 Swiftwater Cliffs and an Evolving Wilds, it's like I'm either going to want to be red-blue or splash red or blue, depending on where I end up. Like, it's the sort of thing. If you have 3 lands, like, again, 2 red-blue lands and an Evolving Wilds, you can easily bleed blue-black and splash, like, a Reduce to Ashes. And that card's quite good in Sealed. You're always going to want to play that card. Or
definitely.
Or even you're going to be like red-black and splash, like, 2 Cloud Conceers. Like, that card is just really powerful. Mm-hmm. So I'm not above splashing it. And it's good to keep track, and it'll pull you towards certain decks too. Because imagine you have 2 Jungle Hollows, or you have even just 1 Jungle Hollow, and you're like, well, I'm torn between like green black and green red. They're pretty close. If a good tiebreaker is the land, because you're just going to get mana screwed just a little bit less. Yep. So I think that it is important to kind of keep that in mind. And it just, again, opens the door for whether you're splashing or not.
Yeah. So big picture here, when you sit down to build your sealed pool or when you do your practice sealeds, this is the mindset you should have. You should be bumping things more expensive, a little greedier, and you should be focusing on cards that give you long-term advantage or are rawly powerful rather than cards that give you short-term advantage or are more trying to be synergistic. So move in those directions. Now, Luis, let's do a little game here. Main deck or no? All right, so I'm going to run through a few cards, and we're going to decide if we should or would main deck these cards in sealed deck here. So first one up, Noxious Grasp.
I actually like main decking this one. This is the one in a black spell that kills any green or white creature or planeswalker, and you gain a life. Mm-hmm. And the green is just the most played color in sealed. It's because of good commons and the ability to splash. Like, when you open, decent green, but you have 2 Gift of Paradise, all of a sudden you're like, well, if I play green, that means I can actually play the best of 3 colors instead of the best of 2. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden green kind of enables that. So I have liked main decking Noxious Grasp, though, to be clear, I would not main deck any of the other color hate cards. Like, that's the one.
Yeah, that is the one. And then you can occasionally snipe, a gold card like an Empyrean Eagle or, a Corpse Knight or something like that too. Just
totally,
and of course actual white cards. Negate.
I like main decking Negate. I think that every deck is going to have good removal. It's really hard to imagine what a sealed deck someone else would play that does not have good removal looks like. And Negate is the kind of card that I'm happy to have one of in any blue-based sealed deck.
100%. Yep. You get the baseline of countering their removal, and then you get free rolled a bunch of other stuff like random planeswalkers and important artifacts and things like that. So definitely worth it to put 1 negate in. I don't think I'd play 2, but I would play 1. What about Bone to Ash? That's one that kind of goes back and forth in draft. Are you going to main deck a Bone to Ash?
I would tend to main deck Bone to Ash. I'm probably like 80% to main deck it in sealed. Like, the only reason I wouldn't is if I just had a really great deck and was full up on playables, plus had no other instants, because it gets a little better if you have even a Spectral Sailor makes it so much better, because you leave out the mana for Spectral Sailor and then bam, you Bone Dash them. Or if they play around, they can't play around it. When you have a Spectral Sailor in play, they have to play their creature. So.
Yeah. I actually really like Bone Dash and sealed quite a bit. Most of the game finishing bombs it counters, and many of them cost quite a bit of mana. So you actually have time to get your mana under you, and you can sort of just let the game develop for the first, say, 4 turns, 5 turns of the game, or 5 mana drops or whatever. And then you can counter their 6 drop or their 7 or even their 8. Mind Rot.
I actually don't like main decking this most of the time. I have found that despite sealed being a little slower and the long game mattering, it just doesn't come like the board still matters, and it's hard to get to the point where you can really snipe them with Mind Rot. I don't know. There's some sealed formats where I really like this card. I just haven't liked it that much in this one. What about you?
Yeah. So to me, I would main deck it, but I need a little push. I need a little oomph, like an example would be, let's say I open up the Black Cavalier. Right. And I'm like, okay, I really want to play this, but I look at the rest of the black cards in my pool and they're just okay. And I'm a little short. Yeah. Mind Rot is one I'm totally fine giving myself the green light to just say, go ahead and play a Mind Rot here. It's not terrible. And it's going to enable me to play these other cards. If I had other stuff though, that, if I just had a black heavy pool and I just didn't really need to find room for the slot, I could leave it in the sideboard and feel totally fine about it. So, I would say 60% of the time I'd main deck it, something like that. Like, just if you're a little short, you need a 3 drop, you can always, of course, bring it in matchups where you think it's going to be particularly good. What about Destructive Digger?
I've liked Destructive Digger well. This is 2 in a red for a 3/2. You can pay 3 tap and sack an artifact or land to draw a card. Right. It's the kind of card that when you're flooded, this actually gets you out of it. And some games are like that. You're both just kind of sitting there, and they've drawn 11 lands, you've drawn 12 lands, and all of a sudden this converts 3 of those lands into card draw, and you're back on top.
Yeah, and these are the sort of unsung heroes. This is in the similar camp to the Brightwood Tracker, right? Where it's just like they're fine-ish cards, but in the right situation, they become your best card. And then what about sort of the true sideboard cards here? Disenchant and Natural End. both of which are similar here.
I do not like main decking these. Part of the problem is one of the best artifacts that people play is Meteor Golem, and I'm not really thrilled to disenchant a Meteor Golem.
Yeah, true.
That's not really where I want to be. If you run out of playables, it's not a disaster, but in general, I would tend to keep these in the sideboard.
Yeah, in M20, it's not particularly well suited. You know, one of the first cards you'll think of when you think of these effects is a pacifism. There is one in the set as well as sleep paralysis, so you can unlock a creature from underneath those, and at instant speed. Sometimes it matters in the case of pacifism for combat. But you know, the truth of the matter is that there just isn't quite enough on the other end of things. You know, the artifact creatures are fine. You know, you've got your Diamond Knights and your Anvil Rot Raptors, and as you said, Meteor Golems and stuff. And sometimes people end up playing, you know, a Stone Golem or even a Steel Overseer, or maybe a Scuttlemutt or something. And it's just, you know, the thing that I always try to encourage people to do is not consider the bar being, will I have a target? Right. It's, will I have a target that I really would feel fine about killing it? You don't have to be thrilled. It doesn't have to be like an insane blowout, but you have to at least feel, you know, again, like you mentioned Meteor Golem, it's similar for Pattern Matcher. Like people often only play that if they are likely to get value from it. It's like, you're killing their random 3/3 on the board that they already got a 2-for-1 off of, and you're taking a lot of risk on to do it. It's not worth it a lot of times. So I agree with you. I think those stay in the board. Now, these next two are also generally considered pure sideboard cards. And the question is, would you main deck them? So Plummet and Reckless Airstrike.
I do tend to main deck both of those. Not like more than one total, but the first Plummet or first Reckless Airstrike, I think are both well worth having. Plummet kills all these flying bombs. I made a list of cards Plummet hits. It hits Herald of the Sun.
You made the list. Okay, yeah.
Well, we talked about making the list, and then the list was in the notes. So, like, I kind of made
that list. That is a version of the truth, yes. It kills some insane bombs, though, right? Like, so the list are the flying creatures that Plummet kills that Reckless Airstrike does not. And it has like Sephara, Air Elemental's good, Herald of the Sun you mentioned, Boreal Elemental's pretty good at that too. But like Cavalier of Gales, Embodiment of Agonies can get big enough. Vilis and Drakaseth. I mean, these are bombs that, like, all of those cards that we just said are very likely to get played if they're open in a pool, and and basically all of them are guaranteed to get played if the person's in those colors. And, you know, some of these are pretty hard to answer outside of like a murder. You know, your opponent plays, you know, Cavalier of Gales, and you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, it's got 5 toughness. It's, you know, only a few removal spells actually kill it. So I actually really like main decking a Plummet. I don't like main decking a Reckless Airstrike as much because it doesn't kill these huge bombs. It does hit some key artifacts, or at least some reasonable artifacts it hits. I just picked a few. Anvil Rot Raptor, Heart Piercer Bow, if people are playing that game and it's good against you. Meteor Golem, sure. Pattern Matcher. Ancestral Blade it kills. Okay, that's a thing. Blood Soaked Altar, that card can take over the game. It kills Golos. That matters. That card's, you know, very powerful. Mask of Immolation, Wolf Rider Saddle, so these artifacts that are like red or green or whatever. I'm less excited about that, though. I think if I'm going to take the risk, my mentality is if I'm going to take the risk on putting, you know, an air quote sideboard card in the main deck, I really want the payoff. And Plummet gets me that. I mean, if I plummet, you know, your Drakaseth or something, that's a huge win for me, right? Like that is well worth taking on the risk. So that's why I would do that.
Yeah, I think that having answers to these things is important. So.
Yeah, it's just you lose, right? I mean, if they play Drakaseth and you don't have an answer, you're done. Like that is exactly what we were talking about with the board stall breaking power level card, right? Like it's a perfect example.
Even beyond that, something like a Boreal Elemental will just kill you if you don't deal with it. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times you're playing these, like, look, if you have 2 Mammoth Spiders and a Netcaster Spider, yeah, you can maybe leave out the Plummet.
Definitely.
It's just you're not shoring up any weaknesses, but. It's the sort of thing where you want to have the first removal spell is worth a lot more than the fourth, and the first way to deal with a flyer is the same.
Right. One other thing that I noticed come up is just be aware of decking yourself as a possibility. It doesn't come up super often, like it's still a rarity, but the games really, really can stall out. And if you've got like 2 Gorging Vultures in your deck, the one that mills you for 4, and you just sort of play them out on turn 3 and turn 6 or whatever, weren't really thinking about it, the game actually can get to the point where you're looking at your library going, wow, I've got 8 cards that I milled away, and all of a sudden I'm behind. So just keep an eye on cards, some lesser known cards maybe out of the sideboard or whatever, like Loaming Shaman, that goes up a little bit. Same thing with Sage's Road Denizen. That's the type of card that you can use to mill out your opponent. And when the game stalls out and Sage's Road Denizen isn't really charging you that much for doing what it does, you can get a real advantage where you go, look, we're both just sitting here staring at each other. I win because I have random Sage's Road Denizen on the battlefield. Yep. Again, not a high priority card, not a card that's taking the place of a rare or an uncommon, and all of a sudden it can become your win condition.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the biggest differences between draft and sealed is not like, oh, this is a completely different game. It's know which cards get a little better, know which cards get a little worse, and try to eke out those little edges. Because, Sage's Road Denizen is a perfect example of a kind of, poor draft card that you'll play if you're kind of desperate, or maybe you have a control deck with 2 of them and that's kind of your plan. But it turned into like a moderate to good sealed card where most of the time I'm playing blue. If I have like 6 or 7 blue creatures, then sure, I'll play Sage's Road Denizen.
Yeah, and it's just an awareness thing, right? Like there are definitely times where the board is stalled even in the air, and you draw, your Gorging Vulture, and you just shouldn't cast it. Yeah. Like oftentimes maybe it's just better to hold on to it for now, because if it does come down to decking and it doesn't change anything on the board, you're going to be pretty bummed. Another one, we mentioned some of these before, but these expensive cards, specifically like 7 mana cards or higher, do have a bit more room to breathe, like Scholar of the Ages and Agent of Treachery. Those are cards that you can play in draft, no problem, but here they can really shine. I mean, you're just a lot more likely to get to the point of casting them and having them, be impactful. Agent of Treachery is just kind of always good, but Scholar of the Ages can be a bit slow for draft. But it can really shine here. Same thing with like Howling Giant, especially in green. That's the type of card that can kind of go over the top, and you want Safara, Meteor Golem, we talked about a little bit before, Villas and Drakaseth as well. So these are, again, don't be afraid of these expensive cards. These often can just win you the game or be a primary part of your game plan.
Yeah, I mean, after all, when it comes to sealed, the path to success is to take massive determined action. So.
Oh, God. The new Louise, huh? All right, let's get to some of the questions here from our patrons. I'm just going to kind of pick and choose here, and let's see what we've got. Let's see. This one comes from Renee, who says, "Hey guys, I hope you had a great time at the Mythic Championship." Luis, did you have a great time at the Mythic Championship? You did not.
No, not so much.
I was working. That was a tough show. He says, Renee says, "My question. Recently, I saw quite some comments on different social media like Twitter and Reddit, etc., that made me think that people are kind of tired to deal with and play against planeswalkers. Do you think Wizards of the Coast might cut the idea of planeswalkers somewhere in the future?"
Well, on the one hand, I think that planeswalkers are very complex and often dominate the game to a pretty high degree. Like, if you go to like Constructive, there's a Teferi in play, the game's kind of about, can you kill the Teferi? If not, you're probably going to lose.
Yeah.
On the other hand, War of the Spark was the most popular Magic set in the last couple of years. So that had 24 planeswalkers or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. So my guess is no, they're not going anywhere.
They're not all. The answer is hell no. Yeah. They are the absolute focal point of the brand at this point. Yeah. I mean, they represent everything.
There's not going to be, I wouldn't expect a War of the Spark every year with millions of planeswalkers, but I would expect to see a couple planeswalkers per set for essentially the foreseeable future.
Yes, and they're going to be on the cover of the booster packs and in the front stage of the commercials and the cartoons and everything. So yeah, planeswalkers are definitely here to stay. I am curious though, Renee, to see how they change the designs of them. This is a tough question, Luis, and I never know how to answer these, but maybe you have a take on it. This is from Brandy. It says, "I have an LGS that plays sealed for F&M, but you get to pick your 6 packs from any combination of anything that's standard legal. What would you pick?" I don't even know how to do this. Like, do you just pick 6 from the most powerful set, or do you pick and choose some?
in general, 6 of the same set's going to be much better than a mix because it'll just take advantage of any synergies in that set, right? And,
exactly.
If you pick M20, you'd rather have 6 packs of elementals than 3 packs of elementals and 3 packs of pirates if you picked Ixalan, which you shouldn't pick Ixalan, by the way. Right. My inclination is probably that like Dominaria is pretty good, or no, War of the Spark. It's just going to be War of the Spark.
It's probably just War of the Spark, right? Yeah,
it's just so powerful because of those planeswalkers that we just talked about, and I think that the fact that War of the Spark has good synergies within itself and has a lot of powerful planeswalkers. I think this format would be better if you could not pick the same set 6x, but that is what they do, I suppose.
That'd be cool too. Kyle says, "Hey Luis, did you know that you wanted to be a game designer before you started playing Magic professionally? What was the first game you ever made?"
I did not. I didn't even know I wanted to be a game designer until I had the opportunity to be one. Which it's funny because in some parts of life, like Marshall, you can attest to this. You have a goal and you set your mind on it and you work towards it and you hopefully achieve it. Sometimes you're just in the right place, opportunity comes along, and it could be just as fulfilling and just as important, but you didn't have the goal of being a full-time podcast host. That's
no way.
That's not something that you even thought was in the ballpark
no.
before you started LR. But when the opportunity came along for that to be possible, you certainly seized it. And,
yes.
It's that kind of moment of decision that it shapes your destiny. So for me,
man, I got to go look in the mirror and get myself pumped up. For
me, game design, I had the opportunity to work with Direwolf Digital when they were kind of reaching out to a couple different Magic players, and I found myself well suited for it. The way I kind of interviewed for it was actually flew in for like a 3-day internship, not really internship, like a 3-day, like basically they like a short-term 3-day contract where basically I worked for 3 days. Which let me and them decide if it was a good fit. I mean, given that...
Wow, you actually got to take a test ride. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Given that was 7 years ago, I would say it was a good fit. The first game... Well, I can't talk about the first game I worked on because it never came out, which is not uncommon in the world of game design. I think the first credited game I worked on was either Eternal or Elder Scrolls Legends. They both came out kind of similar time frames. It gets murky with alphas and betas and whatnot. But no, I love game design. I think it's a ton of fun. I think it's super engaging, super deep. It's it's a profession that you can really like throw your whole self into. And while I'm here, Direwolf Digital, of course, is a great place to work and is hiring. So if you go to direwolfdigital.com/careers, you can take a look if you're so inspired. I don't know. It's the sort of thing where it's a kind of young industry. Most of the people who worked in game design, especially the kind of generation before me, did not have any formal game design training, but but now you can actually get kind of a degree in game design. That's actually something you can do, which you couldn't. Yeah. You could for a while now, but those people weren't really like that. Hadn't really permeated the industry. Now you see it a little more frequently. I certainly love that one. Yeah,
there's a school out here that does like video game.
Yeah, there's a number of schools that offer are either schools that specialize in game design, or you can at plenty of places get a degree in game design from a school that's not the only thing it offers.
Or you can just win a couple of pro tours or whatever. Urine says this is probably more relevant for casual Magic, but here we go. When you notice that your opponent is tilted, what can you do so that they still enjoy the game? By the way, good on you, Urine, for thinking about your opponent here. I know there's a lot of people that just wouldn't care, so that's pretty cool. This is tough. I mean, I know what I do. I just shut my mouth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just don't say anything. Like I we've all been in that position where you feel super frustrated. And I got to say, the worst thing that I ever want to hear, the absolute worst thing is like you mulligan to 6, then you go to 5 and they go, ouch. Yeah. Right. And most people don't say that to rub it in. They actually aren't trying to hurt your feelings or to point out your misfortune. They're actually trying to sympathize with you. It just doesn't come across that way at all. And I don't need it. You know what I mean? Like I'm a big boy. It's okay. I can mulligan to 5 and even be a little frustrated about it and be fine. But what I don't need is to be consoled or, I don't need either the good or the bad from it. I don't want you to say, hey, I know you're mulliganing to 5 and I really feel bad for you right now. I would say, don't be silly. Like, it's Magic. We're fine. Right. And I also, of course, don't want somebody to go, that sucks, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, and try to rub it in my face or whatever. So what I do is I just be quiet because I just feel like anything I say is going to be taken poorly. I mean,
without trying to open up the whole handshake versus no handshake debate, when I'm winning, especially when my opponent is like visibly unhappy or getting unlucky or whatever it's going on, I just shut my mouth. Like, it's, if they want to say good games and, shake hands and talk about the match, sure. Sometimes people even ask like, hey, would you have done anything differently? Whatever. I'm not going to offer that unsolicited. Like, that's just not going to help. I'll kind of let them dictate how it goes. Like, if they want us to be in complete silence and, they scoop up their cards and walk away after signing the match result slip, fine with that too. Whatever helps them process. I'm not the one having a bad day,
Yep. And when you are, I think you and I are very, very similar in that we just need to process it for a few minutes and then we're fine. But it just takes a minute to kind of accept a loss, right? And I don't mean like a match. I mean like the one that boots you out of a tournament or something that was important to you and that you had high hopes for. And then, it's okay. It's just need to process. Next one comes from Jackie. I don't know how to say that. Also, let's see. I recently played Rochester Draft with my play group, and it was a ton of fun and surprisingly strategic. Boy, I'm not surprised to hear about the strategic part there. Do you have any advice on approaching Rochester Draft? And I have nothing. I've never even done one. Have you? Like, was this part of the PT when you started? I think it was already over, right?
Most people, I would say 95% of people listening don't even know what Rochester Draft is. So, so Rochester Draft is what happens is the person who's first opens their pack and lays out all the cards face up on the table. No one else has opened their pack at this point, just them. They select a card, the person to their left selects a card, and it goes all the way around. Basically, you draft face up one pack at a time. Is kind of the
takes forever.
Takes forever and is really harsh because, imagine we're drafting, and actually did a Rochester Draft somewhat recently, and you make a pick, and then the person next to you looks at you and is like, what the hell did you just do that for? And takes a pick. Like, your mistakes are just out there for everyone to see. Yes. It was actually kind of funny. So the one I did was at Gen Con last year, not this last one. And you had to win a draft to be in this Rochester Draft that used packs from Unlimited up towards Urza's Saga. And since Antiquities, the like fourth set ever, was such a small set, 2 packs were open and combined into one. And there was 2 copies of the same common. And so the first pick was Bob Marr, who's in the Hall of Fame. He took Battering Ram, right? That was his first pick. Mm-hmm. The person next to him took a different card, and then I took the other Battering Ram, and then the guy looked at me and looked at Bob and was like, yeah, I probably should have taken Battering Ram.
Hey, at least he's paying attention, I guess.
Yeah. So no, the strategy for Rochester really is just pay attention to what colors your neighbors are in. Try not to be in their colors unless you think they're going to take the wrong cards, which has happened before. Mm-hmm. And also, the real strategy for Rochester Draft is how do you find a Rochester Draft? That part I'm less clear on. But
yeah, BDM was always trying to convince the coverage people to do it like after we got off work. And I'm just like, no, like it takes 4 hours or something. I have no idea what I'm doing. Like I'm going to bed. And it's like, I feel like Rochester, having never done it, admittedly, but to me, it has this sense of the thing that's really fun to think about and remember, but not as fun in practice. Yeah, I mean, like it's very cumbersome,
Yeah, your past doesn't equal your future, and the Rochester Drafts are part of the past.
Yeah. Sebastian says, have you guys played any auto chess games, Teamfight Tactics, Underlords, etc.? If so, do you enjoy the genre? And I have not.
I haven't actually played any, but I watch a lot of Underlords, and it's pretty sweet. Like it's a fun genre of game. It's basically like you're like building your armies and they automatically fight. That's kind of where the auto come from. It doesn't actually have much to do with chess, even though you can place things. It doesn't matter that much. It's mostly about like building and leveling up an army and being strategic with how you spend your money, and then watching your and your team composition, because different characters are better with other characters, and then watching your goons fight it out. It's kind of like if you were drafting in Magic, but you didn't. The games got played automatically. So it's neat. I understand why people like it.
Yeah, I've been actually. I'm vaguely unaware of every other game except for Magic, but also
vaguely unaware. No, you're just completely unaware. You will recognize some of the names, but like,
yeah, it's true.
Look, this isn't a beat, but you're not like a gamer. Like
I'm not. I'm just not. I don't like board games.
This isn't like a gatekeeping. Like, oh, you're only a true gamer if. What I mean is like, you love Magic and you love poker and you love basketball and you love watches and you love these things individually. You don't love them. You don't love all games. You don't love gaming intrinsically because it's gaming. You like the games that have captured your heart, which it does make you a gamer overall, but you don't have the gaming history that most people who play Magic do, right? Like,
no, I don't.
You haven't played, Diablo 2 and Mario and all these other things that you ask most Magic players and they're like, oh yeah, I love those games. And that it's cool. Like you're just from a different background than that. And that's just not where your passions lie, which again, totally fine. I just want to point out for those who are listening that if you ask Marshall about games that aren't Magic or poker or basketball, he's going to know the names of them. I would be surprised if you'd played many of them.
Yep, that is exactly accurate. Jonathan, now we answered this one, but I want to get your take on it. What's your favorite, Jonathan Montgomery says, what's your favorite non-US city to attend a Pro Tour or Mythic Championship, whatever?
Let me think. Non-US city. So it's kind of funny because I haven't actually been to an event there. Going to Tokyo was pretty incredible, and I kind of view that as part of going to, like, if when I went to like the tournament in like Osaka or Kyoto or Yokohama, able to go to Tokyo as well. If you're talking about strictly like what I like about like a place where there's an event and then there's like stuff around that, like in that actual event.
Hawaii.
Well, Hawaii's in the U.S. I count that as the U.S. Otherwise, Hawaii would just be my all-time favorite overall. But
sorry, I forgot it was non-U.S. city. Yeah.
I actually think that Barcelona is pretty far up there. I love Spanish food. I have relatives in Spain and I speak Spanish, so that really goes a long way. Tokyo is more of an experience, and and other cities in Japan are awesome too. Like they're very different though. It's funny, if you haven't been to Japan, you probably don't see these cities as like, you don't really have a frame of reference as to why they're different, but like the difference between Kyoto and Tokyo, despite being anagrams of each other, is just incredible, right? Like, Kyoto's much smaller, lots of like temples and greenery, and it feels like a completely different thing than the like giant neon blast you in the face mega metropolis that is Tokyo. So megalopolis. Yeah. So Japan's basically my favorite place to go of all these places. But I think Barcelona is also really, really high up there for what I've enjoyed doing.
Well, you're lucky then, because we go to Barcelona all the damn time.
Well, Spain is not the most expensive, is part of it. So
it's expensive to get there. It's just not expensive.
Yes, but actually running events there is not nearly as expensive as something like running an event in London, which is just a lot pricier. So that you see those decisions do impact the location of things quite a bit.
Alan says, hey guys, longtime listener, first time subscriber. Thank you, Alan. When doing the set review, it's hard to evaluate some cards in the context of the set, cards like Season of Growth. Assuming there was more time to prepare before the set review, what could be done to get a better idea? Is doing draftism or playing on X-Mage a good idea or not worth the effort?
I don't think it's worth the effort.
Yeah, these are two different things though, right? Like, understanding where you're supposed to pick things is one thing, but understanding how cards work in the context of a set, this doesn't really get you that.
Well, it depends what your goal is. If you're saying, hey, Luis and Marshall, how could you two prepare for the set review better? The answer would be try to do drafts because, against other people. And yes, I don't think doing simulated drafts where you don't play out the games is really going to teach you much. Like, I don't really see value in that. Because like that wouldn't teach us that Renowned Weaponsmith was actually good, right? Like,
no,
it's not going to give us that context we need. No. If the question is, how can you as a player be more prepared for the first events you play in? then yes, that could be a little better because you're going to get more familiar with like the cards and drafting decks and what they look like. But I think that what you're asking for in a set review is a much more detailed analysis than I think you can get by doing these things.
Yeah, without having actually just played the set. The Papster says, hey, y'all, I was wondering if you guys had any hobbies other than Magic, not counting poker or photography. Thanks for the great show.
Well, I don't count poker or photography because neither of those are my hobbies. So
they are mine. What are your hobbies? Cooking?
Yeah, I'll let you name them.
Okay, you like to cook.
Yep.
Hanging out with your friends and family and stuff doesn't count as a hobby, right?
No, I mean, I think people do that. Like, not everyone does that to the same degree. I think I'm pretty high on that scale, but I certainly don't think it counts.
Man, you work so much. Like you're so much of your what I would call your hobbies are centered around work, mainly with gaming, because you actually are a gamer. You're a real gamer boy.
Yes.
What else? That's it. Hiking. You like hiking.
Yep.
You like to get out into the thing. Yep.
That was basically the only other one.
Yeah.
It's
the only one you have time for.
But it's not that you're right. I do work a lot, as we both do. But part of it is we were living the dream in that we've converted our hobbies into our work. So if I had a job that was completely unrelated to games or Magic, I would say one of my hobbies is playing Magic. But I can justify, like, when I did it, I did a bunch of cube drafts last week, or last time the cube was up, I guess it was a week and a half ago. And I just recorded them for Channel Fireball. Yes, I guess that's work, right? I'm recording these videos, but like that's what I would be doing with my time if I wasn't recording them. So I think cube drafting does count as a hobby.
Yeah, sure. I'll count that. Yeah, for me, basketball is probably my number one. Like I play when I'm home, I play 3 times a week. I was
going to let you guess mine. You didn't give me a chance to guess yours.
Yeah, go for it. Do it.
Basketball, cooking, watches.
Yep. And I'm not allowed to name photography. I don't really play poker much anymore. Not
Which kind of indicates it was less a hobby and more of work. It had that overlap into the workspace where
yes.
Like. It's not that it was just about the money. Obviously, you enjoyed it intrinsically, but once you didn't have time to really devote yourself to it, it's not something you wanted to do 3 hours a week.
No, and especially because I crossed that line where I was doing it, as a part of my actual income for a couple of years there when I was trying to get the podcast off the ground, and it was like, boy, it does change your mentality on it. I'll tell you that. It just it saps the fun out of it. It keeps the challenge part alive. Like you still want to kind of, do it right and attack it and, treat it like you would any other kind of worthwhile endeavor, or at least that's how I would do it. But man, I used to like really enjoy the more kind of fun aspect of it. And that really went away. It's just so brutal when you air quotes need the money. It's just a lot different. With the watches, I've been doing something kind of cool. Well, probably not cool. Cool is probably not the right word to use, but I've been taking some online classes on how to repair them, like how to,
that's sweet.
Take them apart and do it. And you'll be happy to hear, Luis, I've passed the second training course and I'm on to the third. There's only 4. So we're kind of doing it.
I think that's awesome. Like, I think that one of the things you can get caught up in is stuff like watches or cooking. A lot of people are like, I'm not good at these things. I should pay someone to repair my watch or just order food or whatever. But yeah, there's just intrinsic pleasure in, craftsmanship. And I think that's something that's cool to see you do.
What I've really realized for me as a hobby with it is because I've always really appreciated these type of things, like well-designed things. It covers a wide range of stuff, but watches definitely kind of encapsulate that. But the thing is that, back in the day, I was really into cars. Like cars was kind of my thing. And that was a thing that I did with my dad. And he had a garage and I would go over and we would work on cars. And I had a car. I mean, we did so much. I mean, hours and hours and hours. I took the whole entire engine out of my car and replaced it with a better one. Like that is not the type of thing that you just sort of drop in there and then turn the key, right? I mean, it took, a week and a half or whatever. And I had a friend and he would come and we work on his car and we go to the races. And, it was like really my main hobby. But now My dad has since passed away, so I don't really have that connection anymore. And also, I live in an apartment. I don't have a garage or, tools and stuff to work on a car. And plus, I kind of don't really want to work on cars like that anymore anyway. But I really miss the hands-on stuff, the problem solving, the approaching something like, okay, this is what I know about it. Here's the symptoms. Can I fix this? And having that have some practical use. And like I said, just working with my hands with tools and stuff like that. I really miss that part of it. And the watches are it's kind of interesting. They're kind of taking that place. And so what I've been doing is looking for good deals on eBay for like broken old watches, basically, and then trying to see if I can fix them. That's kind of my goal. So anyway, that's become a hobby that's a little bit more recent for me, at least. Let's see. Misha says, yo, Marshall and Luis, you are both Legacy Cube aficionados. And I was wondering, as the cube list has changed over the years, are there any particular cards or archetypes no longer featured in the cube that you miss drafting? I have one.
Yeah.
It sucks. This is one of those ones where like I support the change, but I still miss it. Like I would have also made the change that they made, but I found a niche archetype that I really enjoyed drafting, which was this blue-black tempo aggro deck. Because do you remember when all the Legacy cubes still had like Carnophage and all of its friends in there, basically all the 2/2s for 1 black mana? And those cards really were holdovers from a time when those cards were overpowered, and they just at some point became really not overpowered and really not what black was into. But people just left them in their cube for a long time because they had always been there, and people tended to not change them around. And you could combine those with the blue bouncy cards, like of course my beloved Mana War, but also think of any of the enters the battlefield, bounce your creature, and then a bunch of super cheap or free counter spells in addition to black hand disruption spells. And you could just sort of put out like 6 power, rip away their most important stuff, and then hold up a counter spell for the next thing and just keep slamming them. Look, it wasn't the best deck in the cube, but it was actually viable, and I really enjoyed drafting it. But at some point, people woke up and were like, why is Carnophage in this cube? Why, there's like 5 or 6 of those, and they finally took them out, and then boof, my beloved, I was the only one who ever drafted it archetype disappeared. But again, those cards really didn't add much, so I'm kind of glad to see them go.
I guess I can't really think of an archetype that's disappeared. I mean, as the cube has evolved, certainly cards have rotated in and out, but no, I mean, there's nothing in particular. I guess I just kind of play it as it lies. I don't really think too much about what the changes are. I don't know. That's just not really my style.
You just attack it. Whatever's there, you're going to solve it. You're going to attack it. Makes sense. Carter says, this is kind of interesting. Hi, Marcel and Luis. We've heard a sign off of Luis's top 5 limited sets, but I don't think we've heard your favorite limited formats. Marshall, what would you pick for your top 5? And of course, we did a whole entire show about that. So you have your answer there, Carter. But Carter also follows up and says, what are your bottom 5 least favorite limited sets? And I mean, there's no way I could come up with 5. But it does make me think of what is widely regarded as the worst limited set, at least in my era. So call it the last 10, 11 years or 12 years or whatever. And that is Avacyn Restored. That was the one that really took a beating as far as public perception went.
There's another one I'm sure you can name that's pretty recent.
Ixalan?
Yep.
Yeah, Ixalan. Yeah, so we've got 2, and then I'm going to add another one just out of spite, and this is especially for you if you think that this set's good and you're trying to do it, and it's Masks. I don't care if you like Masks or if you're nostalgic for it. That set was horrendous, and I did draft it once, thank you very much, and it was so awful. So we got to 3 for Carter.
Masks is one of the all-time lowlights when it comes to Magic, both constructed and limited. And this is coming from someone who kind of likes that sort of garbage. I still can't really defend it.
Yeah.
Masks. Basically, the Masks has like all underpowered cards and nothing to break board stalls and very few ways to actually win the game. It's just really, really bad. Like really bad.
Yeah.
So besides Masks, Ixalan and Avacyn Restored, there's a lot of forgettable sets. Like a lot of the core sets before they were really designed for draft were just like, it basically like, here's the cards we want to reprint, and like, okay, let's fill it out with some commons and uncommons. So like, I would say that between like, Magic, core set 2010 to now, there's probably like 3 or 4 core sets that are just no one can even remember which one they are. Like,
yeah, that's totally true. Also, I think that the first few were actively bad. Like, remember when they had those cards that you mentioned and then the Titans?
Yeah.
Like perhaps the best limited cards ever. They're on the top 10 or whatever. And it's just like, oh, okay, I guess we're not playing anymore. Never mind. You know, like, come on. That was, those were unnecessary. I did love M13 though. That was the one that was a casualty on our top 5 that I really wanted to make the cut. I just love that set. John Barley says, hi fam. Hi, John. At the last GP I played in, one of my opponents was playing a modern deck, Affinity, which I've played against countless times. However, this time was slightly different. He had purposely used all foreign cards and alternate versions of the cards. Now, I know it's legal to do this, and let's be honest, some of those cards look pretty sweet, but my question is this: is it genius or grifter? I was undoubtedly thrown off by it. I had to ask him numerous times which cards were which. Setting up blockers was slightly more difficult. You get the picture.
So my answer to this actually depends on why the motivation behind it, because that really does matter, right? When you're trying to judge someone's actions, their like in some ways their motivations don't matter, right? Like you don't care why someone runs you over if they run you over, whether it's they were on the phone, their foot slipped, someone hit them with a rock, they were drunk, whatever. It doesn't matter to you. You're dead. You got run over. But in this particular case, if the opponent just thinks, I want the sweetest version of all these cards, I love the way these look, that's not genius or grifter. That's just them expressing their personal style. If the reason they did that is I want to confuse my opponents, that's grifter. That's just stupid. Like that's not that's not a good way to try to pick up wins, No,
it's such a terrible use of your resources.
So there's you've heard of the Wald, right? It's the planes.
Yes.
That has the
Vault. Pronounce it correctly, Luis. Vault.
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 Yes. Anyways, it's a plains. It's a German plains that has, or picture of a plains that is actually a forest. So it has the picture of a plains, but it's called Vault.
Mm-hmm.
That
good. You're getting better.
And it taps for a green because the card itself is forest. Imagine basically they just put the picture of plains on a forest. I know people who play that, or people who play Dryad Arbor, the promo version of Dryad Arbor, from the Vault version of Dryad Arbor.
Oh yeah.
And to confuse their opponents, and that's just grifter. Just get out of here with that. In fact, if you play that promo version of Dryad Arbor to confuse your opponents, you should just be banned. I don't care that it's just a legal printed card, and banning you for playing it is kind of ridiculous. That is what I believe.
All right. A strong stance, but there you go. Keldon says, the other day I was playing a critical game for a draft on Arena, and I managed to dramatically punt away an easy victory as I was distracted talking to my roommate. As streamers and content creators, do you ever have difficulty avoiding punts and poor play because you are focused on your audience? Oh, yeah.
Look, I love streaming, and I'm actually pretty good at multitasking as kind of on balance. And I play so unreal bad when I'm streaming. Like recording, you play a little worse, right? Like if you're let's say you're at peak performance, like when you're focused at a pro tour and you're doing, if that's 100%, right? Even though it'll vary, of course, based on a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. If I'm recording, it's probably like 95%. And if I'm streaming, it's like 85%. Like
that's funny. Yeah. I think recording a video for me bumps me down to about 90 or 85. I know I should be used to it after having done it for all these years, but there's something about talking and explaining that just means that I'm not thinking. And when I just sit and I'm quiet and I'm thinking, I definitely play better. I wish I was better at that. I feel like I'm similar to you. Like I can still handle a lot of multitasking, probably do it better than most, but still,
you're definitely good at it.
It really does affect me. It really does. And I don't like to admit that, but it does.
Yeah. I mean, as they say, where the focus goes, the energy flows. And when you're focusing on chat and talking and stuff,
just unbelievable. This is just unreal. The snake oil is flowing free.
I'm just trying to answer the questions with all the tools I'm equipped to use.
Oh, God. Alex says, hey, Marshall and Luis, first I wanted to say that my wife and I have made the street corn recipe. We just talked about that today, Luis. You mentioned on a sign off probably 10 times since the episode aired. God, I'm going to have to make some today. Like you brought it up and now Alec brings it up and now I'm just craving it. I already made some a couple weeks ago. He says, we're addicted. Now, my question is this. What's your strategy for not turning on autopilot during the course of a draft? I found it especially easy when drafting on Arena for me to slip into an autopilot mode where I overvalue my first few picks, for example. How do you avoid that in your everyday life of drafting? It's funny because I think that the answer for Luis and I is probably quite a bit different. I struggle with it too, Alec. I do. I think that almost all of my mistakes are because of autopilot. And I almost notice them immediately where I'm just like, I'll just do this. This seems fine. This is about right. And then I go, wait, dang it. If I just would have asked myself, but what about this? What about this? Doesn't this make more sense? I would have said, yeah, it does. And I just would have made a different play. But instead I've just made a play that is, the way that I like to break this down is Ben talks about it. Ben Stark. He says, look, you can get to be pretty good at Magic and understand the correct play that would be correct about 80, call it 80% of the time, maybe 90. To get to the next level is when you understand when it's time to think about it and break away from that sort of standard issue play. You're already pretty good. I mean, if you're making that right play, that 80%er player every time, so only 10 to 20% of the time are you wrong, you're actually going to win a lot and do pretty well. You just can't get to like the upper levels. I feel like, Luis, one of your absolute best strengths is that your autopilot is already really, really good. Probably going back to those, buy one, get one free foot-long sandwich days with Paul Cheon, where you guys were playing hours and hours and hours and hours and really focusing, putting in the work, discussing your plays and doing all of that. You just seem to have this ability to play really high level with your attention scattered. And then, of course, you get really scary when you focus. But for me, I have the same problem that Alec does. Maybe not the getting married to my picks, but in game, I do it all the time.
Yeah, it is easy to kind of lose focus. And a big key to this is really just knowing yourself and knowing the sorts of situations where you'll succeed versus not. So if you notice, because Arena, right, it's perfect. It lets you draft while you're like doing the dishes or watching a TV show or whatever, where you're going back and forth, right? Let's say you're cooking dinner, right? And some parts of cooking involve waiting. I could just definitely see having a laptop there and just be like jamming a pick or two in the middle. Well, if you look at your results, what happens and how you end up drafting in these spots, and it's like, wow, I really don't do a good job when I have a 2-minute break in between every 3 picks, because I'm like cooking or something, and I shouldn't do that. That's a good thing to know about yourself. Of course, you might still decide, this is still more fun enough that I'm going to do it, but then I think you just shouldn't get frustrated by it because you just know that about yourself, or you accepted those risks when you did it. But
right. And it's like, where do you really want to be? I mean, do you expect yourself to play, fully focused, perfect Magic every time?
Again, it depends on expectations.
If you're a pro player, maybe. Yeah.
So much of life really is expectations management. And it's like, I know people who don't find it fun to play at less than peak or near their peak. They just, this most frequently happens in like former professional players who are like, hey, do you want to go to a PTQ, right? And it's like, no, I just don't want to go because like I know I'm not the best anywhere near when I was practiced, and I don't want to show up at a tournament not being practiced. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's their goal, right? They understand themselves. It's a good self-awareness. And then there's some people who don't care at all. They have none of their goals have anything to do with being the most practiced or being the most focused. So my advice basically is, if losing focus is something you care about and you really want to change, try to identify the situations where you lose focus and try to maybe find some solutions where it's like, maybe if I'm drafting while I'm cooking, I don't do 3 picks, go away for 2 minutes, do 3 picks. I try to find slightly longer breaks where I can do the whole draft in one, or do at least one pack in one, or something where it's not going back and forth. So I think that it's up to you to kind of figure out where you want to land there, because I mean, look, we're both competitive players. This is a podcast that has a lot of focus on competition and getting better, even if that competition doesn't mean literal tournaments, just competition with yourself to kind of be the best player you can be. I have nothing but respect for people who look at that and just decide that's not what they want to do,
Yeah, I think that's a totally fair line to take. A couple more questions here. This is a quick one that I wanted to hear from you. Taylor says, Hey fellas, when will LSV and TBS be doing the Arabian Nights and or Legends set review? I really enjoyed the Alpha set review, and there was talk back then about doing it again. Thanks for everything, Taylor in Arizona. We did have a chat, or at least I did, I assume you did too, with TBS while we were in Barcelona, where he lives now, about setting this up. And he seemed like he's in. He wants to do it. In fact, him and I had a chat over dinner about, kind of just mapping it out, what it would look like, that kind of thing. So it sounds like this is in the books.
Yeah, we just haven't figured out the time. That's been on me. I was gone last week, and I've just been behind on a bunch of stuff. Yeah. So
we can do it.
We're definitely going to do it. Look, here. Setting goals, makes them become reality. So, so TBS and I are going to record the Arabians podcast. We're committing to it, and then we're gonna create this vision of the world and make it happen.
Okay. One more question. Jordan says, hey guys, really love the content. I've gotten into debates lately about why Magic is the best game ever made. And I run into the argument that it has, this is hilarious, too much variance relative to pure strategy games like chess and Go. As the strategist that y'all are, do you prefer a game with randomness? Hasn't the initial appeal of beating a better player that games with variance offer worn off? Thanks and keep up the great work. Great question, Jordan. And it's funny because I, at least when it comes to games like this, have almost no interest in games with no variance, with no randomness built into them. It's weird. I don't know why my brain works this way, but it even works this way within the context of Magic itself. Like, for example, I really love in a game to try to figure out if what outs I need or what broad strategy to take. When it comes to like, okay, I have 8 creatures, you have 8 creatures, it's time for a bunch of combat math. Should I be attacking here? I just view that as a chore. I hate it because the thing that I'm not interested in are things that are solved or could be. That to me is akin to like putting together like a puzzle, like a picture puzzle or whatever. It's like, I know how to do it. I know that it's a thing that can be done, and I don't get any particular satisfaction out of sitting down and just doing it. I like to figure stuff out, right? I like to look at it and go, well, what do I need to know? And that requires me to have knowledge that is not in front of me, meaning what are the chances that my opponent does this versus this? And then I make a play based on my estimation of that. That's what I'm interested in for Magic. And the rest of the stuff I kind of tune out. That's why I don't ever really want to do chess, because I look at it and go, well, I could get to a certain level at it, but it's just there. It's all just right in front of you, right? Like there's nothing for me to estimate on the other side. And that's the whole part that I like. So the funny part for me about Jordan's question is that every game that I really think is great has randomness built into it. And the ones that don't, I have almost no interest in it at all, which is, I don't know. Are you the same, Luis?
Yeah, I think that the randomness it's not necessarily all randomness, though I do like randomness quite a bit. Hidden information is a big part of it. I think it's for you as well, because trying to figure
that's different than
it
randomness.
Is. They're not the same, but I do think randomness helps with replayability, because look, you're going to play all games with a variety of skill levels, people better than you, people worse than you, whatever. It's a lot more fun for me when those people, everyone has like a shot at winning. I'm like, look, you're more likely to win if you're better, if like the game's well designed. Otherwise, we'd just be flipping coins. But I don't want it to be a foregone conclusion. I think that that's important as well. Also, just helps make the games feel different. Like, look, I'm not saying chess is boring. I used to play quite a bit of chess. I was actually in the chess club at high school until Magic really kind of took over that part of my life. But I think that Magic, the variety in games of Magic, or whatever your favorite board game is, vastly outpace the variety of games in chess, and that is important to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that like if you were to list the games that I find the best, that they'll almost all have. I'm glad you made a differentiation between hidden information and randomness, but they'll have them. All right, let's stop there, Luis, and call it a show. If you want to find us on social media, I'm Marshall_LR and Luis is LSV. Remember, Channel Fireball sponsors this podcast. So you can go there to buy cards, singles, or sealed product, and then also check out GP Vegas. I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to sign up to draft with Andrea Mengucci, Gabby Spartz, or Luis Scott-Vargas in Cube. At the event, you'll find the information there. But also, you should just come out if you can. I know it's not on the cards for everybody to make it out, but it really is one of those. Even if you've never really gone to a Magic thing before, just jump in the deep end. This is the one that actually has the most different things, so that you can kind of find out where you fit in. If you're a casual player, competitive player, if you're more of a side event drafter, if I want to win the main event at one of the Grand Prix that's going, you'll find something for you. If you're into cosplay, if you're into art, there'll be a bunch of artists there. And of course, there's a bunch of cool social stuff that goes on to help you kind of integrate with the community as well. Gatherings and people playing in the lobby of the hotels. And it's just people everywhere that are all about Magic. So I do recommend coming. Again, I understand that sometimes you live too far away or work gets in the way or school or it's too expensive or whatever. But if it is a possibility for you and you're interested in Magic, I think the GP Vegas is absolutely worthwhile. And you can find more information at CFB events. That's going to do it for this one. I don't know when we're going to record next week, maybe early in the week before we get to Vegas, because otherwise it gets to be a bit of a zoo. But so the show may be up a little early next week. Otherwise, we'll do it live from Vegas in the same room somehow. So either way, we'll see you next week.
So I had a lot of wisdom this week on the show.
Oh, you were dropping knowledge bombs left and right. Oh my God. I felt like I was in the principal's office, like reading the inspirational posters or something. It's like,
so basically what happened is I went to a Tony Robbins seminar last week in Vegas. I was in Vegas all week for business mastery, and it was quite an experience. I'd never been anything like that, though I had read a number of books in that vein, both by Tony Robbins and other people. And it was, like I said, it was very different than what I expected. There was a lot more physical activity because a lot of the talking, was broken up by like you getting up and you're dancing and you're clapping and you're like, interacting with the people around you so you're not just sitting in a chair for 10 hours, because the days were long. It was like 12, 13 hour days. And I found it incredibly useful. Like, I'm not going to say that every single thing there spoke to me, nor do I believe, every single thing, especially since there's so much different stuff being presented. But it was a combination of like ways to kind of motivate your, personal development, and then, kind of the stuff that I think a lot of listeners would find boring, talks about marketing and accounting and stuff like that, which I did find useful because that is something that I do. And I kind of wanted to distill some of the stuff that I found the best out of it, because, and me and Marshall talked about this for probably like 2 hours or something over the last couple of days, yesterday and then today before the show, because I'm still kind of processing it. And I was talking to you about it to see what you thought. I think that like the biggest thing that I think, and I've seen this from people in my life, whether it's, what they're saying here, Tony Robbins saying at the seminar, or just other people through their actions are saying, is that it really, what's holding almost everyone back is just it's not knowing what to do. It's just not doing anything. It's being afraid to take action or not being willing to take action. And, there's a lot, like, I think a really good example was like for health, like it's not hard to figure out ways to be healthier or lose weight. It's not for lack of information that people don't do that. Right. Like there's just 20 million different things. You can't walk 10 feet without stumbling over someone trying to tell you which way you should do this or that. And as someone who, I've spent time figuring out the best way to be healthy, and someone who still has a lot to learn there or a lot to do there, it's not that there's a lack of effective ways. There's a lot of different ways to kind of cross that finish line, or not even cross the finish line because it never ends, but to kind of take that path. It's that you actually need to do them. And that's just so much more important. And what most people struggle with, it really is just taking action. And so much of it is about finding ways to get yourself in the right mindset to take action. And I think that's pretty valuable. Even you don't have to believe what any one person says. I'm not really interested in that. What I am interested in is figuring out ways that motivate you or to propel you to do something. Like one of the things that we talked about is, Marshall, you quit your job to become a full-time podcaster. And you're someone who doesn't like uncertainty. And, but you took action there, and it worked out really well for you. And it's not to say that it always will. You don't want to be results oriented either. We're not throwing that out the window. But most of the really good things that have happened, I think, in both of our lives have been as a result of, well, massive action, right? Of taking dramatic action one way or another.
Yes.
And that is what's required. If you want to change, if you want to make something different than the way it is, you do have to do something pretty big. Like that, it's not going to change if you don't do anything. And I found it interesting to, and motivational to learn about that, even if, like I said, motivational speakers, I think, get a kind of bad rap, but I'm also not, fully bought into every single thing they say. That's not, me, that's not like when I was using a lot of those quotes, it was, it was mostly to tilt you, to be honest. It was,
yeah, well, it was working. I'm like, how many more does he have?
Oh, no end. Low grade disruption of the show was really my goal there. But I think what's really important is to figure out what are the things you actually do want. And if you're not taking action on those, then that means you don't want them enough. Because if you did, like, a good analogy is when an invading army is invading a city, like they're sailing on their boats, they land and they go to invade the city. A strategy that has been used in history is to burn all the boats. So you no longer have a choice. You cannot fail in retreat, right? And putting yourself in that mindset where, like, look at it this way. If someone said, Marshall, you need to you need to lose 15 pounds in 6 months or you're going to get shot. You would do it, right?
100%.
Or to use a less extreme example, you need to do that in 6 months. And if you do, you win $1 million. That's maybe equally extreme, but a more positive example. In both those cases, you would just do it, right? You would figure out a way. Or if someone said,
easily.
Or if someone said you need to learn programming enough to write this program, such and such thing, that does this thing in 6 months. I think if you were told you get $1 million for doing that, you would do it. And that's not to say that, Marshall, if you can, in 6 months you need to be able to run a 4-minute mile. You're like, well, that's not going to happen. Sorry, that's not something I can do.
That is not in the cards.
If you were told you had to run a 6.5 mile in 6 months, you could do it. Like,
I would certainly make the effort to do so for that prize, even if
I do firmly believe you could do it if you are incentivized enough. So the question is, what are the things you want to do that you can incentivize yourself enough, you can motivate yourself enough to do them? And it's not an easy question to answer. And the biggest thing is, like, there's a difference between wanting something and doing it. And if you want something, you don't do it, it does question how much you actually did want it. Right. And and that's going to be something you've got to figure out. There's a lot of different ways. Again, there's a lot of different paths you can take to get there. And, you can enlist the help of friends or family. You can, one of the things I did that was successful for me in the past is literally make a weight loss bet where if I didn't lose, me and the other people in the bet didn't lose a certain amount by a certain date, it was like a $3,000 bet. And we all succeeded. No one had to pay anything because, that it wasn't that it wasn't just the money, but it was like, that's the additional bit of motivation I needed to be like, okay, I'm going to go work out, or, I'm not going to have dessert today, because it's like, $3,000 is a lot of money. I don't want to lose that. And figuring out what you need in your life to do that, I think that's a good lesson, even regardless of the methods you take to get there. I think there some things work for other people better than others, but I overall had a very positive experience. I don't know that I'm going to do a lot more of this kind of stuff, but it was certainly interesting to say the least. And I don't know, 5 days of 12, 13 hours a day was exhausting. So I guess I'm glad that part's done, but it was certainly illuminating. And part of what I think makes you, and has made me good at things, is being able to, like, synthesize a bunch of information, take what I think is useful, and maybe not use the stuff that doesn't speak to me.
Do you have any inspirational quotes to leave us with? Well,
the one that, again, the one that is that I found to be the most useful was, let's see where to go.
You're inspirational now.
The path to success is to take massive, determined action. I think that I think that's true.
I like that.
I think that how many people do you know that have succeeded in the things they wanted without being determined and taking action? Not very many people sit there and, some people win the lottery, right? Some people, maybe their family's really rich. They just get everything they wanted. I don't even know if those people are happy though. So I think that, even though I'm sure some are, like, let's not downplay it. Like that's better. It is better to have more rather than less in just about every case. But I think that the people who I respect the most and the people who are the happiest and the people who are in a position which they really got to create themselves had to be determined, had to take action. Like, how many people have told you, Marshall, I want to do a podcast. Here's my idea for the podcast. What do you think?
Oh, I've heard that countless.
And what's the difference between those people and someone who does a successful podcast? Is it the quality of idea?
No,
it's just the doing it. And there's a million people who will tell you that. The conference I went to was only one of those people, and it was presented well, did a good job, all that stuff was great. But I just, regardless of what you think about the kind of presentation, which I did think was actually good, it doesn't really matter, because that is so true. I already knew this was true. This just reaffirmed it. The difference between people who accomplish something and are happy and are not always happy. Happiness and accomplishments aren't the same thing. I don't want to get too bogged down in that. But the difference between people who create something and people who don't, people who succeed in something, it is doing it. You're not always going to succeed if you do it, but you're not going to succeed if you don't. The thing that I find the most like nonsensical is someone's like, I'm an aspiring content creator. It's like, that doesn't mean anything. You're a content creator or you're not a content creator. There's no aspiring content creator. It's not, your podcast isn't waiting on you buying the perfect mic. Your podcast isn't waiting, on you sketching out your first 10 topics or finding the perfect idea and the perfect tagline and the perfect intro music. It's contingent on you doing it. And you'll learn and you'll get better. I'm sure that the first LR was worse than the 5th or whatever, or the 10th. And, totally. Certainly worse than whatever the first show I was on, but it's good. It'll get better over time. And as long as you keep doing it, you're going to find a path forward. It might always be a path to success. I would be lying if I told you could start a podcast tomorrow and get 100,000 downloads in the first year. It's just not, I can't tell you whether that's true or not, but you're certainly not going to do anything if you don't actually do it. So yeah, I think that's an important lesson regardless of whatever else you believe. And I understand that some people are skeptical of this kind of thing, but I don't know anyone who has succeeded without taking action and being motivated to do so and having a desire to do so. So I have nothing bad to say about